Happy Tuesday. It's Bible study time. I am so excited about this week's Bible study. This week we're in Genesis 8, and I've had a couple of issues uploading Genesis 7, but I'm going to try to get that out to y'all tonight. But this week we're talking about Genesis 8, and I titled it God Remembers. And we're going to talk about that. This is so good. This is so good. I can't wait. All right. We're in Genesis 8, and this is when the flood recedes. Hey, Maisha. Happy Tuesday. Look, I'm so excited about this week's Bible study. Oh my goodness. It's so good. And we probably won't be on here that long. And, well, I shouldn't say that because I am kind of long-winded, but this is so good. I've been trying to figure out how to live stream with it horizontal. I haven't figured it out yet. I thought I did, but it made me flip it back. But I'm going to try to get Genesis 7 up as well. So we're in Genesis 8 this week, and I titled it God Remembers, because the very first, I've read this so many times, and it wasn't until I was preparing my notes this time that I noticed this. And we may have to go back a little bit, back and forth between 7 and 6, because I have a few little things that I want to notate. But the very first verse says, "But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede." Oh my goodness, I can't even talk right. And the flood waters began to recede. And so immediately when I read that, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. All I said was that I titled it God Remembered because of verse 1. And I was saying that I've read this so many times, and I noticed this as I was preparing my notes. And I think this is so important. Like, ooh. Okay. So it says, "But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede." And so I was just kind of thinking about, what is the purpose of Genesis 8? And so what I concluded is that Genesis 8 is teaching us about waiting and having patience. That to me, that was the gist of that. And so sometimes we think that God has forgotten about us. And when I read this, I kept thinking about, okay, God made a covenant with Noah. He made a covenant. So we're in Genesis. Genesis means beginning. We know that God made a covenant with Noah. And so all throughout the Bible, remember I told y'all that whatever word, phrase, or concept that you see in Genesis, when you see it in Genesis, that's what the word means, the concept, all throughout the Bible. And so we see here where the very first line, it says, God remembered. And I was like, wait a minute. Why would the Bible remind us that God remembered? And so I know that if you go back a little bit, the flood started It says the flood started when Noah was 600 years old. And I kept trying to understand, okay, it mentioned it like twice. I was like, why does it repeat? And we know the Bible repeats itself a lot. And that's good because sometimes we forget. We forget. And I find myself repeating things over and over, but hey, if the Holy Spirit gives it to me to steward, that's what I'm going to do. But I remember the flood started when Noah was 600 years old. When they finally got ready to get off the boat, he was 601 years old. So then I go back to verse 8:1, and it says God remembered. So girl, you soak up everything I say like a sponge, because sometimes you'll come back and be like, oh yeah, I remember when you said that. But I thought about that. It had been a whole year. And I need y'all to go back and study this. I need you to go back and read this. It had been a whole year since Noah had heard anything from God. Now think about that. A lot of times we get to feeling like, okay, has God forgotten about me? Because we haven't heard from him in a long time. But God made a covenant with Noah. He made a promise. Remember, covenant means agreement and promise. And we know that God does not break his promises. If he said it, he's going to do it. And so I kept reading. Yes, and that's what I wanted to talk about. That silence can be hard. And so what we can learn from Noah in this particular chapter is we can learn how to wait, because the Bible said a lot and it didn't say a lot either. And so as you study Genesis 8, what I noticed is when you go into, it starts around verse 2. It says the underground, I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'll try to do it as quickly as I can, but I just want you all to see something and focus on. The underground waters stopped flowing and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began, the boat came to a rest on the mountains of Ararat. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So y'all forgive me. And then it goes on to say, verse 4, exactly 5 months from the time the flood began. I just said that part. I'm sorry, y'all. Verse 5, 2.5 months later. So now we're at 7 months. But the very first verse says that God remembered. He didn't say anything to Noah, but he did send a wind to blow across the earth so that the flood waters could begin to recede. Hasn't said anything to Noah. I want y'all to notice that. He didn't say anything to Noah. 7 months has passed. Hadn't heard anything. Might feel like God is silent. God, I've been praying and praying and praying and praying. Do you hear me, God? I've been praying for a new job. I've been praying for my marriage. I've been praying for my children. I've been praying about my finances. God, you said, you told me, and you said you are a man that you shall not lie. And I want people to understand that he's silent. He's silent. But I also noticed that Noah, I noticed, and this is what I wrote down because I couldn't help but to think about this, because when we're first introduced to Noah, it says that Noah was favored by God. It says that Noah was righteous. It says that Noah was also he walked in close fellowship with God. And so those things are not just in there just for us to read them to know about Noah. It's telling us that we need to be in alignment just like Noah. We are favored by God. We need to be righteous. And then also, remember, Noah was obedient. Noah participated in his own destiny. He built the ark. And so I wrote right here, sometimes in the waiting, we feel like God has forgotten about us. Noah had a close relationship with God, but God didn't have a conversation about when and how the flood waters would recede. And so a lot of times we want to know the how, when, what, when is God going to do it? How is he going to do it? And I noticed another thing, and I don't think I mentioned it. Noah didn't worry about the details either. He didn't worry about all the details on how all the animals were going to get in the boat, because we didn't see him asking questions. And we do that a lot. And so that's one thing that we can learn from Noah. Remember, Romans 15:4 said we are to learn about those things written long ago. And here, this is Old Testament. It's talking about we need to learn from the things that were written long ago in the Old Testament. Look, I said the same thing, Maisha. I was like, man, I know I be getting on God's nerves sometimes. Like, when God, but I don't think, because I got it written right here. I said I also noticed that he didn't ask. There's nothing. I want to make this clear too. It's nothing wrong with asking, but what it shows us is that Noah had faith and trust in God. And verse 6 goes on to say, after another 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the boat and released a raven. So even while Noah was waiting, he still was being productive. He didn't just say, well, I'm just going to sit back and wait. I'm just going to wait. He waited, but it shows us how he waited. And that's important too. He waited patiently. He waited quietly. All those things that are in the Bible. Psalms 27:14, written by David. Wait patiently for the Lord. Now, he waited on God and he didn't get ahead of him. And so immediately I thought about this, but I want to keep reading a little bit further before I say. After waiting, I was in verse 6. It says 40 days. Then you go to, it says he released the raven. Then he released the doves. And then verse 10, it says after waiting another 7 days, Noah released the dove again. This time, the dove returned to him in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Then Noah knew that the flood waters were almost gone. He waited another 7 days, and then he released the dove again. This time it did not come back. I can't. Okay. When I thought about this, I was like, not Job. Why is Job coming up? I meant Noah. Noah is teaching us patience here. Noah is teaching us patience. He's teaching us how to wait on God. And think about this, because this question came to my head. What if Noah had not waited? We ain't got to that part yet, but what if he had not waited on God and he stepped a foot out of that boat? He would have drowned. If he and his family would have stepped out that boat before God told them to, they could have drowned. He could have decided when the dove came back with the olive leaf, he could have said, okay, let me, and here's the thing. This shows that he had some common sense and discernment. If he brought the dove brought a leaf back, okay, he could have said, well, maybe the ground is dry. We're gonna go and get off this boat. And what do? We sometimes we step off the boat before we are told to, and we drown. We do things before God instructs us to, because that's the whole basis of this, is following instructions. Not for God to control us, but following instructions so that we can live a good life. What do? Well, it's taking God too long. I'm going to go and find my own husband. It's taking God too long. I'm going to go and find my own job. It's taking God too long. I'm trying to fix my own finances. It's taking God too long to send me some friends. I'm going to go find my own friends. You see what I'm saying? And then we end up, also too, I thought about this, drowning in our own emotions, because everything we do has a I don't want to say consequence, but that's the only word that can come to mind right now. But I looked at this and I said, Noah did not step off that boat. None of his family. They stayed on the boat. And so now we're down to verse 13, and it says, now Noah was 601 years old on the first day of the new year, 10.5 months after the flood began. The flood waters had almost dried up from the earth. Noah lifted back the covering of the boat and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. Now look, I thought this was very interesting. He's 601 years old. He was 600 when the flood started. Now he's 601 years old. The Bible is letting us know that it had been almost a year. And it tells us that he lifted back the covering of the boat and he saw the ground was drying. The ground was dry. He saw it drying. They could have stepped out the boat then. Still didn't step out the boat. Then it says in verse 14, we're at 10 months now. Then it says in verse 14, 2 more months went by, and at last the earth was dry. It's dry. Still does not say Noah stepped out of that boat. And here's the part right here. Verse 15, it says, then God said to Noah, God finally speaks in verse 15. Verse 1, he sent the wind. He hadn't said nothing. 5 months, 2 months, 7 days, 40 days, 2 more months. And then finally, in verse 15, it says that then God said to Noah, leave the boat. This is in verse 16. Leave the boat, all of you and your wife and your sons and their wives. And I thought this was so good. He did not get off that boat until God gave him a word. And that's what we need to do. We need to learn to be patient. And we don't need to move until we get the word from God. We don't need to move. We don't need to do nothing until we get a word from God. This was so good. The whole time he was waiting on God, God never spoke a word until it was time to get off that boat. And I've already said this, but we move before God instructs us to, and we end up drowning in debt, drowning in our relationships, drowning in our careers. Like, am I making, like, come on. People talk about this stuff all day long. About things that didn't happen, drowning in our careers, our emotions, businesses, all because we didn't wait for instruction. And going back to Genesis 6, we talked about how God gave Noah step-by-step instructions on how to build an ark. He gave him one step, then he gave him another step. But we be wanting the whole plan. We be wanting the whole plan for our whole entire lives. And that's just not how God operates. Because I feel like if he were to give you the whole plan, then I don't think a lot of us would follow through. A lot of us wouldn't follow through. Noah never got anxious. This Genesis 8 teaches us this. Noah never got anxious. He never got scared, because it didn't talk about fear, didn't talk about anxiety. He just waited. He was like, well, since we wait, I can do this. Yes. And I want to talk about chapter 9 so bad. I'm just going to mention a little bit. But it says, in verse 16, he says, leave the boat, all of you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Release all the animals, the birds, the livestock, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, so they can be fruitful and multiply. So Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives left the boat, all of the large and small animals and birds. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and there he sacrificed as burnt offerings the animals and the birds that had been approved for that purpose. And the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice and said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of the human race, even though everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. I thought that was interesting. Childhood, because a lot of times people, and I've even thought about this, can children be evil? And I think they can. I think that children can be evil, and the evil children grow up to be evil adults. That's why God says to train a child in a way he should go. And it starts at childhood. It starts at childhood. The Bible is literally telling us in the beginning. Because I hovered on that a little bit. Everything they think or imagine is bent toward evil from childhood. It starts in childhood. And then it says, as long as the earth remains, there will be planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. And so, just a recap of Noah. And I said this earlier, but I'm going to list them again. Noah was favored. Noah was righteous. It said that he was blameless, not sinless. Blameless, not sinless. So that shows us that he wasn't perfect. Because a lot of times people think, oh, Christians got to be perfect. No, God is not calling us to be perfect. And so as I was writing all of these attributes down, you know who I started thinking about? Jesus. All of these things are attributes of Jesus too. Jesus was favored. Jesus was righteous. Now, Jesus was sinless. He never sinned though. He walked in close fellowship. Like, it's giving us basically the blueprint to follow. Walked in close fellowship with God. He had a good relationship with him. He was obedient. He did as the Lord instructed. I mean, if you go back and read chapter 6 and 7, it says Noah did as the Lord instructed. That's obedience. All he did was apply what God told him to do. And this is the part I said we were gonna talk about. We'll talk about it now, and I'll talk about it a little bit in chapter 9 too. But Noah was fruitful. If you go back and read Genesis 1 and 2, it tells us God says to be fruitful and to multiply. I don't know what's going on with me tonight, y'all. My words are not coming across. But God tells he says, be fruitful and to multiply. Fruitful means to be productive. So Noah actually ended up, and I actually kind of like thought about this morning on my way to work. I said, Noah did all the things that God told him to do, and he ended up being fruitful, actually producing fruit, because he had a vineyard. I was like, what? He actually had a vineyard. And I should have went ahead and included chapter 9 into this, but we still gonna talk about it a little bit. But he planted a vineyard, and he made wine. And what do people do? What can you do besides drink it? You can sell it. Now Noah, and this is where the part comes in that we know Noah wasn't perfect, is because he got drunk. As my pastor would say, he got drunk off his own supply. So this is one of the things that I learned too. It's not a sin to drink. It's a sin to get drunk. And then, okay, why is it a sin to get drunk? Because it clouds your judgment. If you drink too much, what does it do? It clouds your judgment. You can't think straight. If you can't think straight, then guess what's going to happen? Or you think the wrong thoughts so you can do the wrong thing. So it's not a sin to drink. It's a sin to get drunk. And I've seen a lot of drunk people in my life, and I've seen them want to fight. People want to kill other people when they get drunk. They want to do things that they should not be doing. It clouds their judgment. It clouds their mind. And that's not just with alcohol. That's with any substance. But for right now, we're talking about alcohol. So, because I know a lot of people think that, oh, when you drink, I'm not a big drinker, but I do, when I want something, I have something. This is not holier than thou Bible study, y'all. Yes, sober-minded. And I'm I'm not going to say I'm a control freak, but I don't like to lose control. So I've never been drunk or even close. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why I don't drink. But Jesus performed his first miracle at a wedding. And what did he make? He turned water into wine. He turned water. And they called Jesus a drunkard and a gluttony. Said he was gluttonous and he was a drunk. And he wasn't. And so that's pretty much it for this week's Bible study, Genesis 8. That was good. And I also wrote this down in my notes. The waiting was about having patience. I think that God could have dried the land up quicker than what he did. He's God. He's sovereign. And so we live in a world where everything is instant gratification. We want everything now. And sometimes waiting means preparation. Sometimes waiting means you just gotta wait. But a lot of time it is preparation. Because a lot of times when we get things too soon, I think we tend to not have as much gratitude, for the thing. Sometimes we have to wait. The mentioning of the months and the days I think that was all strategic. God letting us know, hey, sometimes you gotta, yes, the microwave generation, Maisha. Sometimes it's good for you to wait. And like I said, what would have happened if Noah and his family had stepped off that boat before God gave them a word? They would have drowned. And a lot of times we're drowning. But the good thing about God is that he's a redeeming God. He's a God who gives grace. Because as much as people talk about, and that's why I get so upset. They talk about how, to me, it's not about religion. God is a graceful. Even when the Israelites kept messing up, a lot of people kept messing up. Even because you spoke about Jonah, Maisha. God sent Jonah to the people who were wicked and evil and told him to tell them, he gave them a chance. He gave them grace and told them to repent, right? He does the same thing with us. That's a picture of what he's telling us to do. All the sinning and all the things that we've done, I still want to forgive you. I still want you to be my child. Full of unfailing love and grace. It's mentioned so many times in the Bible. Unfailing love. That means love that cannot fail, that won't fail. But we have to take the first step. We have to take the first step to come into. God doesn't force us. Going back to chapter, I think it was chapter 7, going into the boat. That's a picture of faith. And let's just talk about that. Noah had faith. He had faith to build. He had faith to wait. He had long faith. And sometimes that's what we have to have, even when it looks like things aren't happening. It looks like God is nowhere to be found. We have to, and I'm talking, not just talking to y'all, I'm talking to myself. It don't look like nothing happening, God. It does not look like anything is happening. Like, where are you? And then all of a sudden, boom. And I'm just telling y'all from experience, going to a job every day crying and saying, God help me, God help me, God help me. Not hearing nothing, crickets, nothing. And then boom, lost my job. And guess what? When one door closes, another one opens. And here I am today, living my best nurse life. I am. And I had to wait. I had to wait. And I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. My attitude in the wait wasn't all that great. I finally figured it out though. I finally figured it out. But that's just how God's grace works. And now that I'm more spiritually mature, now I know, like, wait a minute, even if I don't see or it's not happening right now, I'm going to keep a good attitude while I wait. I'm not going to think that it's not going to, I'm not going to doubt God because I know what he told me. And I know that's hard when you feel like God is silent and you're not hearing from him. I know it's hard, but that's why we have the Bible so that we can study it and so it can encourage us. Because if Noah can wait a year, so can we, right? We can wait too. So he taught us how to wait. He taught us how to have patience. And look what happened because he had the patience and that he waited. He was fruitful. And again, Noah wasn't the only one who benefited. His family did as well. So when God blesses us, it's not just for us, it's for those around us as well. I think about that all the time. God didn't place me where I am just for me. It's for my family. Like, my mom benefits from, me being in the place that I am right now. My brother, my nieces and my nephews, they can benefit from it. And so I think we have to get into a place in our head, like God wants to change our mind and change how we think. That's Romans 12. Romans 12. He wants to change how we think. And as you study the Bible more and more, it starts to change how you think, and you start seeing things. You know what I say, Maisha? You don't see things, with your natural eyes. You start seeing things with your spiritual eyes. And yes, he blesses us for his glory, so he can get the glory. And God gets all the glory over here. All the glory. All the glory. That's why I talk about it so much. Like, just, I have so many instances, so many times God has just come through. So many times. And I'm still waiting on God for something right now. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know it's going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know it's going to happen. And that's the type of faith you got to have. Noah had long faith. Long faith. Long faith and strong faith. Because you have to really have a strong faith to hear from God in one season and then not hear from him in another season and still be like, I know God gonna come through. I know God gonna come through. Because he said he would. He said he would. We just have to believe that. And I think a lot of times we put our belief in so many other things. Belief in God, belief in Jesus. And that's how I'm just feeling right now. Like, I know everything is going to work out. And because I know that, it encourages me. It makes me feel less anxious, because we're not supposed to be anxious anyways. And it's like God remembered. And so I think sometimes we have to remember, like, when you feel like God hasn't come through, like, remember what he did before. Write it down. And that's what I do sometimes. I have to remind myself, God came through last time. He gonna come through again. And even if he don't, like the Hebrew boys said, and even if he don't, I love their attitude. I can't wait till we get to that. We got a long ways, but I can't wait till we get to the Hebrew boys, because that's like one of my favorite lines. It's okay, my God will come through, and even if he don't, we still gonna be all right. I'm paraphrasing, y'all. Yes, Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Yes. So you don't see it, but you need to keep hoping for it. That's what faith is. That's what faith is. I don't see it, but I know it's going to happen. And I'm telling y'all, as I'm a witness of God doing so much. So much. Like, literally, I just, And here's the thing, it doesn't mean that we won't go through tough seasons or tough times. I'm sure it was tough for Noah to wait. I'm sure it was tough for him to wait a whole year. And it also lets us know that God is on his own time. He's not on our timetable. He's on his own timetable. And the only thing that we need to do is just trust him, because that's what Noah did. He trusted him and had faith and be obedient. Stay close to God. And I think when we stay in close proximity, it's easier for us to keep that faith and not have the doubts. for me, I feel like I definitely, before I got in a relationship with God, it was hard for me to believe anything. I was definitely a negative Nancy. Oh, ain't nothing gonna happen. Going to church on Sunday, just going through the motions, just going to say I went, thought I was doing God a favor, and God didn't bit more care. Yes, definitely easier said than done. It's hard. And here's the thing. We have all these people in the Bible. Like, I don't just look at these people just to look at them like, oh yeah, Noah built the ark. No, what is God calling me to build? I see characters like Joseph. Okay, Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely imprisoned. I'm like, okay, God, what they got to do with me? What do I need to learn from Joseph? How can that help me in my life? That's how I study the Bible. And I'm like, if God did it for them, he can do it for me. That's how I believe. If he did it for them, he can do it for me. And I think sometimes, when we think God hasn't done it, sometimes it's not God. Sometimes it's us. Sometimes God has given us a word and we haven't been obedient. And we keep saying, well, I'm waiting on God. And God's like, no, I'm waiting on you. I'm waiting on you. And so sometimes it's not always him. And I know sometimes it has been me. It has been me. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And sometimes you might not know what to do, but sometimes you still have to step out on faith. You have to still make that move. If it's the wrong move, God will let you know. If it's the wrong move, God will let you know. Trust me on that. Because I've tried to do some things. I've tried to do a couple of things and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. And you know what? God said, you can do that, but I'm not going to breathe on that. I'm not going to blow on it. You can do that. Not sure how much success you will have doing it, but you can do it. There are things right now that I have been contemplating doing because I was like, okay, God, maybe if I try this. And I end up right back where I am. And sometimes I don't think, it's like a right or like necessarily a wrong thing. It's just not a right thing for you. That's not where your purpose is. It's not where your fulfillment is. Because remember, even though God wants to bless us and for us to bless others and for him to get the glory, there's always he wants you to do it because he has a purpose for you. And that's where a lot of times our fulfillment is wrapped into that purpose. And it may be something that you probably, I know God don't want me to do that. More than likely he does. It's probably going to be something that puts you out of your comfort zone. And let me just say this, because we need to go back to Noah. Noah wasn't a carpenter. Noah was I think he was a shepherd or farmer or whatever, because he started a vineyard. He was not a carpenter. He didn't know how to build anything. He built it, but he built it because God gave him the instructions. Now, he could have said, God, I ain't never built nothing in my life, and I'm not about to start today. And he would have drowned with everybody else, but he didn't. So God may be calling you to do something that's out of your comfort zone, something that it seems like you may not know how to do. But you have to remember, you're not doing it by yourself. You're doing it with God. He was in close fellowship with him. And I keep saying, and I'm gonna keep saying this over and over, it's when you actually sit here and you think about it, it's simple. It's just not easy. Yes. And guess what? He tried to go the whole opposite way. We're talking about Jonah, y'all. He tried to go a whole opposite way. He still ended up doing the thing that God called him to do. So it's like a lot of times we waste our own time trying to do stuff or trying to run away from it, and you still end back up in the same. You still end up there. Because did he not end up still going to Nineveh? Still went. Yes, I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that. You can run, but you can't hide. You can run. You can put it off. And here's the thing. I hope y'all get this. The enemy may be even able to delay you, but he cannot stop your destiny. And once we get that like through our heads, he can't stop me, because we have authority here on this earth. We have more authority than the devil. He's always gonna make you doubt. He's always gonna distract. Because if you feel distracted, if you start feeling doubtful and all those, that's not from God. God is not gonna plant seeds of doubt in your head. If you thinking, oh, it ain't gonna turn, that's not God. That is the enemy trying to slow you down. Now, he can slow you down and he can delay, but he cannot take your destiny from you. He can't. So I just want y'all to remember that. Doubt, distraction, delay, all of that is from the enemy. And we need to be praying against that every single day. God, anything that's trying to hinder me, delay me, discourage me, please remove it. Block it. Anyone or anything. And we've already talked about how the enemy is shrewd and how he'll send people to do that. A lot of times people are looking for the devil with pointy ears and a red suit. And he comes to you as a friend, a loving friend, what appears. Remember, he's always in disguise. He was in disguise in the garden, and then he disguised himself as a friend to Jesus by entering Judas. And a lot of times people don't even know, because they haven't developed the discernment to know this ain't no friend, this Judas. And people often say, well, what about Peter? Peter had a bad day, not a bad heart. And a lot of times we know these people got bad hearts. We know they do. Remember that Peter had a bad day? Judas had a bad heart. So discernment is key. But when you go back and read, and I want y'all to go back and study Genesis 8, study it with fresh eyes. And think about all the things that we talked about with Noah. And I'm like, okay, even if I don't have God's favor, I can ask for it. Even if I'm not righteous, I can be like, God, help me to be righteous. You know, I think all of it kind of stems from us becoming more like Jesus, which is the process of sanctification. That's becoming more like Jesus. Not to be Jesus, but to become more like him, and becoming more like, when I say that, having his character. And I think that's what we saw with Noah. Like I said, he wasn't perfect. He was not perfect. But yeah. I think I moved from chapter 8. But yep, That's it this week for Bible study, y'all. This was so good. I love studying Genesis 8. And I'm not gonna lie, like before when I've read it, I was like, it's not much going on here. But I just want you all to know that God remembers no matter how much time has passed. God has remembered. He will not and when you have that on your head, on your mind, I meant not on your head, in your mind. Y'all have to excuse me. I have a lot of brain fog, so from little issues that I'm having. But yeah. But when you remember that God is not a man that he should lie, and that he made a covenant, he made a promise with Noah. So if he promised Noah, then if he's made a promise to you, he's not going to break that promise. And that's what I'm thinking. Because as we get further along, when it says God says, I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you, I believe that. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it, and I've seen it. I know I've had some conversations with God, be like, God, you see what they did? You see what they did? And sometimes God won't let you see how he handled it, and then sometimes he will let you see. But the main thing is we gotta not let him handle us and them. So we have to keep our hearts pure. Like I said, pure, not perfect. Not perfect. And I think once we start asking God to correct some of the things that are in our hearts, we start becoming more, it gets easier. Yes. Yeah, his lick is harder than ours. And here's the thing, Maisha, there's a whole list. Like, people be saying God don't play about me, but he really does not play about his children. And so there is, and I might like do just a little bonus, a bonus Bible study on that, because people need to see, like, when somebody mess with God's people, like, they got dealt with, they got taken care of. And I was just having this conversation with my husband and my son. You know, even when you're talking about other people, like, you have to make sure, like, and I was explaining to him, to curse someone means to speak bad about somebody. You got to watch what you say about people. You may not think it's that bad, but God be like, wait a minute. They got some flaws just like you. They have flaws just like you. That's still my child, and I need you to keep your mouth off of them. Even going back to Cain and Abel, Cain did what he did. God banished him from the land, but he said nobody else still couldn't touch him. Y'all remember that? Genesis 4, go back and study it. God was upset about what he did to his brother, but he said he said, somebody gonna try to kill me. And he was like, no, they can't touch you. You see what I'm saying? Yes. Even if they wronged us. And we're not supposed to gloat about, like, when you see somebody doing bad, you know what I'm saying? It done something to you. And I'm telling you, I've seen God do stuff like so quickly, and you, like, for me, I was like, wait a minute, I gotta make sure I'm straight. Hey, you know what I'm saying? I don't want what happened to them to happen to me. And it's not that we're supposed to be scared of God, because I don't want to give off that vibe either. We are to fear God, but it means to have a respect for him. It means to have a respect for him, not to be afraid of him, because he's not like some angry tyrant, although a lot of people think that he is. And we're going to talk about that as well. We're gonna answer that because a lot of people think that the God in the Old Testament is a violent God and an angry God. And we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. That may be a bonus Bible study as well. So yeah. And so a lot of people will talk about what God did, but they won't talk about the people and what they did. And so I think we need to know how to, that's one of the things I used to like ask, like, well, why was God so like angry? And like, but I didn't fully understand, but now I do. Now I do. And so when somebody comes to you and be like, well, your God killed people and he angry and he violent, you'll have an answer. You'll have an answer. And it doesn't matter what they bring to you, you will be able to answer it. But all right, y'all, it's 6:56. My time. That is it for this week's Bible study. I really have truly enjoyed this. I can't wait until next week. Like I said, I'm gonna try to get Genesis 7 uploaded, and hopefully this one will upload by tomorrow. Hopefully. I was trying to keep it at 30 minutes so that it won't take so long to upload, but it still does. I don't know. But hey, this was a great Bible study. I pray that each and every one of you all have a blessed week. And just know that each and every one of y'all are in my prayers. I pray for everybody who subscribed to the channel, those who listen to the podcast. Yes, I'm always praying for everybody. But y'all have a blessed week. And I will see y'all next week. Go ahead and read over Genesis 9. And if y'all have any questions, just let me know. See y'all next week.